So we're continuing the progress on the race car. I've got some low-grade seam sealer. Right now I'm bleeding it to make sure that it mixes properly. You only need about a ½ inch bead or so. Laying that down on the paper. I'm going to stop it. That should be plenty mixed. So we're going to get some seam sealer on as well to make sure that we don't get any water. And since this is flow grade stuff, we'll just let it flow down into the weld. So the reason why we're doing this is because steel and aluminum should not come in contact with each other. This is going to serve a dual purpose. One, to make sure that we don't get any moisture inside the car, and two, so that we don't have any galvanic action being caused by the contact of the two types of metal. You got to make sure that this metal is nice and sealed from the moisture outside. Especially because this car is going to be raced in the Northwest, we want to make sure it's rust proof. Now the reason why you see the stretch here, again, is to ensure that our materials are bonding to the metal. I've already went ahead and scuffed the backside of this piece so that when we do the undercoating, priming, and whatnot, that we're going to get good mechanical adhesion to the metal. Now, I'm going to put a bead of seam sealer in the lower section of this flange here where we're going to rivet the piece into the quarter panel. And the reason why I'm doing it on the bottom side is because when we fit this piece up into place, the seam sealer is going to flow and be sandwiched in between the two pieces of metal, and we'll have the excess seam sealer pouring out of the top here, which is what we want. We want to make sure that we have a nice good bond, but as well we want to make sure that it's going to be watertight. We don't want to put an excess amount on there because we don't want to waste the seam sealer. And this should be plenty because this flange is going to be riveted up against that quarter panel and it's going to fit nice and tight. So the seam sealer is going to finish it off really nicely. We're also going to make sure that we get enough seam sealer around the holes where the rivets are going to go, because those rivets are aluminum and they're going to need their own barrier between the aluminum rivet shaft and the steel quarter panel. So right now I'm using the pneumatic rivet gun, and what we're doing is we're zigzagging this. We're starting here, going up here, and we're going all the way up like this. That's going to ensure that this quarter panel doesn't get warped or bumped anywhere. But you can see how this seam sealer is pouring out of the edges nicely. That's exactly what we want. We'll be able to finish it off with our fingertips. That's why I'm wearing these gloves. Now using this gun, you gotta keep it nice and squared. Pull the trigger one time, and that's what tightens the two pieces together, and the second time, it pops the rivet into place. You're gonna be able to see this quarter panel move here. See that? The tricky thing doing this is you got to move really quickly or else that seam sealer will set up on you. Now I'm going to add a little bit more seam sealer here right on this edge so that we make sure that this is nice and watertight.
Are you? Come down on the angle right here, you might be able to get this.
Now again, we're adding this extra bead here to make sure that this is going to be watertight. It's also going to look really nice once it's painted. It's going to finish the piece off really well. So what we're doing now is we're just cleaning off the excess seam sealer from around the rivets. Wire wheel, pneumatic wire wheel works really well for that. It'll get around all these tight little rivets and it'll clean everything up really nicely. So we're doing a video update on our race car build. What you see here is 14 gauge hot rolled steel. This is going to be the reinforcement for the steering box. Anytime you have a pre-69 car, what tends to happen is the cross member tends to be really weak, especially if it's a track car. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we take this really thick plate and we're going to weld it on there, because what tends to happen is every time we do a restoration, whenever we sandblast the undercoating off of there, we can see that that entire 2-bolt front end gets very fatigued and the steel cracks really easily. So we usually have to weld a bunch of stuff up. By doing this process, it takes quite a bit of time, but it makes things much, much stronger. Race car drivers will definitely tell you that these cars take a lot of beating on that front end going into curves and whatnot, so this is going to make it really strong. like we said, these racing plates are really important. We're also gonna install them here around the steering box, siphon all that up too.